It's a brand new business week. Good morning and welcome to Business Morning. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwago.
And I'm Ladi Williams. Thank you for joining us. Let's look at what's in the news now. Oil prices climbed in early trade to a one-week high in a second straight session of gains as concerns over U.S. supplies following damage from Hurricane Ida supported the market along with expectations for higher demand. Brent crude rose 48 cents to $73.40 a barrel, and U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude was also added 49 cents to $70.21 a barrel. Both markets were at their highest since September 3rd, early in the session.
And about 3/4 of the U.S. Gulf's offshore oil production, or about 1.4 million barrels per day, has remained halted since late August, roughly equal to what OPEC member Nigeria produces. Royal Dutch Shell PLC, the largest oil producer in the U.S. Gulf of Mexico, on Thursday cancelled some export cargoes due to damage to offshore facilities from Hurricane Ida, signaling energy losses would continue for weeks.
And back here, the Central Bank of Nigeria says it did not issue any directive to deposit money banks to convert the foreign exchange and the dumb accounts of customers into naira. In a circular issued on Saturday, the CBN said that it would never contemplate such line of action, adding that the speculation is completely false and aimed at triggering panic in the foreign exchange market. The circular, signed by the Director of Corporate Communications, Osita Wanisobi, was titled "CBN Categorically Denies and Strongly Condemns Peddlers of Rumor on the Dumb Account Holdings."
Operators of domiciliary accounts and other members of the public are therefore advised to completely disregard these fictitious documents and malicious rumors and go about their legitimate foreign exchange transactions. The bank also warned corporate bodies and members of the public against the unauthorized use of the bank's logo for any purpose whatsoever. It added that the attention of appropriate authorities has been drawn to publication and culprits will be sanctioned accordingly.
And the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industries called for adjustment in the current revenue sharing formula for states, local governments, and in the country. And a statement released on Sunday, the LCCI recommends that the adjustment should be made using the factors of equality, 20%, population 30%, and derivation 50% going forward.
According to the Chamber, the arrangement should be agreeable by all concerned parties. The LCCI mentioned that the original formula for the distribution was 50% to the federal government, 35% to states, and 15% to LGAs. But with effect from January 1999, the formula was adjusted to be 15% to FGN, 50% to states, and 35% to local governments. Currently, the states and local governments share their allocation using the factors of equality 50%, population 30%, and derivation 20%.
And the agricultural sector remains a key interest in Nigeria's plans to diversify its economy. Despite increased interventions from policymakers, the sector's output has remained largely underwhelming. The second quarter GDP data recently released by the NBS shows the sector grew by 1.30% year-on-year in real terms, a decrease of 0.28% points from the corresponding period of 2020, and a decrease of 0.97% points from the preceding quarter.
So what are the key issues here? We will have this conversation with an agri expert and the immediate past chairman agri group of the LCCI, Mr. African Farmer Morgaji. That's in a moment. Just stay with us. We're now being joined by Mr. African Farmer Morgaji to look at some of the developments in the agricultural sector and what's driving growth there. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Morgaji.
Thank you for having me.
Right, we've seen agriculture sector being a major, over the years, we've seen that sector like a major focus for the central bank in terms of intervention. Particularly, we've had the commercial agriculture credit scheme, the agribusiness small and medium enterprises, and of course, the all popular known one, the anchor borrowers. And yet this sector, of course, which is supposed to feed the nation, doesn't seem to be doing well. We have seen the performance in the second quarter. Yes, many will say that security the security issue in the country is a challenge. But is it all about security? There must be some key issues why, if we're seeing these various interventions into the sector, and yet it seems it's not yielding any result.
Well, first and foremost, I would want to say that, yes, they are all beautiful interventions that have come, had some impact, but in terms of scaling for results, we have a huge challenge there. And no amount of beautifully packaged intervention without laying emphasis on the structures, on the pillars, will make it work. Agri input is one of the biggest challenges of any intervention, because when the fertilizers in the country is mostly adulterated or low quality, mostly, no matter the projections that you have, you won't get results. So you would see the funding go into the sector, but based on the projected result, you won't find it. The inputs that really work are extremely expensive. They're not in the country like it used to be, so we have shortage of inputs, high fake products. So no matter what you do, then timing of disbursement is a major challenge with most of this intervention. The timing is almost never right.
But what can the CBN do to actually, remedy this situation?
So one of the things I feel it's a feeling. I feel they are short-staffed for the kind of project in which they have taken over. The Ministry of Agriculture should be the one actually implementing, but everybody goes to the CBN. So vis-a-vis the new portfolios they've added on the anchor borrower and the staffing, I don't think it's matching up.
No. When you talked about timing. Can you expatiate that? When you talk about timing, what do you mean? Is it the timing the program is coming on board, or is it the timing the intervention is getting, to the end users? What do you mean by
So
that?
I would talk about timing from two perspectives. The first perspective is the timing of disbursement of funds. So the farmers and the anchors will do what they need to do. But my thinking is, because of the enormity of the workload coming in, there's always this delay. So by the time they are releasing the first tranche, the second tranche also doesn't come when it needs to come. So when you don't fertilize when you need to fertilize, when you don't vaccinate when you need to vaccinate, all the projects will go down the drain. That is one perspective of timing. Two is the time of the intervention itself. So the timing, so most times you find the intervention that should be in the rainy season starting in the dry season.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, these two has fundamentally been a challenge, and not just for this administration. It's been there for 20 years. Same thing. The research has it that it's the same thing. Nobody has been able to crack that code. Once we crack that code, we'll do better.
All right, let's look at this anchor borrowers, for instance. I mean, that was introduced since 2015. And I saw kind of a recent data showing that the CBN recorded a shortfall of about 378.5 billion in loan repayment by beneficiaries on the program. In other words, those that benefit from this anchor borrowing program are even unable to repay when they are supposed to. That's also, a big challenge, because if you're unable to repay the loan, how would now the CBN be able to also give out more to the people that need it?
So let me paint the practical scenario why some of these funds are not repaid. And I'll take the last 2 years where we have insurgency. So even if you insure, because most of those projects are insured, so even if you insure, most insurance doesn't cover banditry that is not making the farmers go to the farm. Many of the youths are also running from the farm, so there's labor shortage. So even though you insure, insurance doesn't cover that. So and so the farmers are left with carrying the burden and to repay. So then apart from that, like I mentioned, the input. So when the supplier supplies the input because the anchor borrowing doesn't give them cash. When you get low quality input, the result will be low quality. So when the yield is low, the projections are not right, so you can't pay back.
So are you saying that what is released to the farmers through the anchor borrowers most times comes out low? The low quality,
Yeah,
it's always a low
the
quality.
low input comes out. However, let me be quick to say this. We have many unfaithful farmers too. You know, it's a two-edged sword. We have many unfaithful farmers. I've seen scenarios where the anchor, the service provider, prepares the land, does everything just for the farmers to go plant, and they receive this input, no matter even how low the quality is, they sell it almost immediately.
So there's still an issue of, you know, some kind of corruption going
Yes.
on there.
Yes. It's both sides, and that's why I say that the anchor borrowers program needs to be repackaged. So the whole idea is it came on board because of the need to ensure food security. However, it needs to be repackaged. It's mostly focused on get 10,000 farmers, 5,000 farmers, 15,000 farmers that you don't know them, you know, the interaction. So bottom line is we need to find
Mr.
smaller.
Mogaji, you work with this farmer. You've been in this sector. You've been consulting with both young and old, trying to get into. Is it that perhaps the right people are also not getting these interventions? Because one thing is to announce an intervention for a particular sector. Another is for the right people, for it to get to the right people.
So I can tell you practical, you know, it's both sides. When it comes to the mega projects, the billions, you know, that they give to Anchor, most of those heavy billions don't get to the right farmers, to the right people. However, when it comes to the few hundreds of millions and co, it gets to the farmer. It depends on the anchor now. So
Perhaps that's why you're calling for a kind of a change.
Yes, to make it smaller. You know, what worked during our founding fathers, Nnamdi Azikiwe, Tafawa Balewa, Awolowo, they work with local farmers in local communities. We also work with local farmers, local communities, and the recovery rate is fantastic. Once they are not more than 50, 100, it can be managed. The 1,000 and 1,000, the big, you know, we like big things in Nigeria, and that's why we don't get that result. The smaller it is, the farmers know each other, they can monitor each other, it's easier. The extension system that is also not funded in most of this intervention project is a major challenge. So you fund, but there's no extension agent to check on them, to talk to them. That is crucial. So you don't fund intervention. When interventions were working, the extension agents were fully operational. So we need to rejig these things, but it can work.
Right. Now, you did mention the youths running away from the farm. And I know that this present administration have been talking so much about engaging the youth in agriculture. And I know that you work with the youth, and you are a youth yourself, if I may put it that way. Anyway, so how do we begin to engage the youth and bring them back to the farm and make it more fun, for them?
So the first thing is that when it comes to farming, going to production, livestock or crops, it's not meant for everybody. It's for a selected few. However, the value chain, processing, marketing, entertainment, you can have people come in. So we focus more on the production. Now we need more youths in the processing. But most importantly, we need to speak the language of the youth. I started before I became a teenager, and I've been in there over 26 years now.
Speaking the language of the youth.
Speaking the language of the youths. The youths today want two things: entertainment and money.
Okay, so how do you bring in entertainment in agriculture, in farming?
Yeah, so, the social media is what the youths, many of them are singing, in code, they use the word they want to blow now. Get them, put a competition or what we call a challenge now. Put a challenge out for them to rap, you select the ones, they come in. You first have to get their interest. Once you get them talking, singing, and code, they pay attention. Then two, the youth they want us to show them the money, strictly the money. So I was shown the money in 1995. as an intern. And I waited. So there was a farmer I worked with in Itoiki who forgot 75,000 naira with me from sales. When a farmer forgets 75,000 naira in 1995, after 2 weeks, I took it to him. I said, sir, this money. He said, which money? So when I now sat down to say, oh, if he could forget 75,000.
In other words, there's a lot.
There's a lot. and he showed me the money, how you're planting population. If it should be 40,000, it should be 40,000. He showed me how to get the money. And once you say you use this seed, you get this result. You must be willing. You see, we also don't process them for the journey. So we just say, oh, go into farming. How much? Like when we talk about data now, we don't push data to youths. Like now, an average about 600 million is spent on cattle consumption in Lagos daily. The youths don't know that. All they need to hear is the figures and a system to get it done. Yeah. They are quite patient also. But bottom line is we don't show them. We talk to investors. We don't talk to the youths as potential investors for the future. They need to invest their energy. And so we need to pitch to them why they should bring their energy in. That is a missing link. We just say, oh, come and plant tomato. Where am I going to be in next 1 year? Yeah. These are conversations that need to happen now.
Okay. Anyway, we have a new agric minister now. What do you expect from him going forward?
Well, the good thing about the new minister is his educational background is in Arizona, which is an arid area, dry. And he's also worked in the ministry, water resource ministry, both in Arizona, and he has that understanding here. So a core component of what it should be doing is to be looking at a marriage between the Ministry of Agriculture and Ministry of Water Resources, because climate change is affecting the farmers, and it is the Ministry of Water Resources that has the mandate. So they need to be working together. It needs to focus, encourage on processing, and it needs to be engaging the stakeholders on a quarterly basis.
What about the research institutions?
So yes, it needs to engage. Those are stakeholders too. It needs is business. When we moved into from military, to the political era, the president then was busy traveling around. So the minister needs to engage stakeholders across board to focus on processing. Have a marriage with Bank of Industry. These things are crucial. If the Ministry of Agriculture wants to take the shine alone, we won't get results again. But he is experienced and is also a current minister. So the bureaucracy of just coming in and trying to adapt is not there. So, but he knows these things. The thing is that, will the political system allow him do what he should do? Because we're entering into 2022.
That's a big question that needs a big answer.
And it has this dynamics in the year preceding.
Right. Thank you very much. We do appreciate your time on the program. Let's just hope that he makes a difference.
Yes, I hope so.
And then he tries to engage more youths. And for you advocacy groups, can also engage him and no man is an island.
Yes.
Show him the right.
He has the foreign background. I believe we should listen.
Okay. We'll see how that goes. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, we'll take a break. And when we come back, we look at how macroeconomic sentiments affect investment decisions in the country. Do stay with us.
To our next conversation, as the federal government prepares to go on a roadshow for the 3 billion euro bond issuance, there are concerns about how the external community currently perceives the risk in the Nigerian economy. An adverse macroeconomic sentiment means investors will demand a higher yield on the issuance, resulting in an expensive Eurobond. Well, join us now to assess the macroeconomic sentiment in Nigeria and how the risk affects their investment decisions in the country is Michael Ogunremi, macroeconomist at Chapel Hill, Denham. Great to have you, Michael. Good morning.
Good morning.
So tell us, what exactly does macroeconomic sentiment mean?
Well, macroeconomic sentiment is it's simply an economic indicator that speaks to the perception and the understanding of investors on how risky, the economy is. So basically, it speaks to what exactly are the political, what exactly are the economic, what are the business risks in the economy, and how does the investing community perceive the strength or the momentum of this risk and how it affects what it is that they do in the economy. A very good example will be in 2020 when we had the COVID ravaging, most of the global economies, Nigeria inclusive. Investors perceive that because of the slow growth coming out of it, it becomes more risky, to invest in developing economies like Nigeria, right? So that's exactly what the whole idea of macroeconomic sentiment is.
Now, one would wonder how this is actually measured. Are there proxies we can look at to speak to, the state of Nigeria's macroeconomic sentiment?
Okay, there isn't any, so you won't find an indicator out there that says this indicator is called macroeconomic sentiment. But just like you admitted, there are proxies that you can use to measure a macroeconomic sentiment. I'll give you just three. The first will be the level and the growth of foreign portfolio investment in the country. When portfolio investment grows over time, it's a good thing as far as macroeconomic sentiment is concerned, because it means that investors are upbeat about the performance of the economy, and then they are bringing their money into the country. The second proxy will be business confidence index, which the CBN computes from time to time. The business confidence index pertains more to domestic investors, so it simply shows how well domestic investors perceive the business environment, and that also ties to, the ease of doing business. The third proxy will be the sovereign discount factor. The sovereign discount factor is just like a discount rate that, is used to value, issuances of the sovereign. So, for instance, you have a government trying to raise a bond. The sovereign discount factor is what is embedded, to sort of act as a discount rate to determine what price the bond will be issued. Whenever the sovereign discount factor soars, it simply means that investors sort of have a weak, macroeconomic sentiment of the economy, and because of that, they are pricing that into the discount rate. So those are the three major proxies I think you can use to assess a macroeconomic sentiment.
All right, Michael, in your view, how would you assess Nigeria's macroeconomic sentiment, and what are the factors currently shaping it?
Well, currently, I would say that sentiments have been improving. If you look at between January and June, what you notice is we've had some of the indicators I highlighted earlier as sort of shown that the economy has been improving, and we've had macroeconomic sentiments improving. So, for instance, we had about a 43% growth quarter on quarter in foreign portfolio investment into the country in the second quarter of the year. That's a good one, and it simply means that foreign investors sort of have a better view, a better belief in the economy compared to the second quarter of 2020, right? If you also check the trend of the sovereign discount factor, you notice that there has been a dip between January and June. However, lately, I'd say since July, August, we've seen some sort of push up in the sovereign discount factor, which also means that investors are beginning to get weary of the economy. And that boils down to the fact that there are emerging threats, to economic growth. There are also one or two issues around, policy uncertainty, which has sort of led to, the concerns we are now currently seeing in terms of macroeconomic sentiments.
So how will this sentiment affect the pricing of the planned 3 billion naira Eurobond that is happening soon?
It will definitely affect. The pricing of the bond. So the way it works is, whenever government is trying to issue, a bond, investors would normally consider a lot of factors to then determine what price or what yield would be at issuance as at the time the bond is being issued. So because of the fact that most investors, like I said before, are currently skeptical. There's some sort of skepticism they have about the economy as to how fast the economy is going to get back to pre-COVID track. It's most likely that they are going to demand a higher yield at issue because of the weak sentiments that they have. And what that simply means is that, just like I said, all of these factors into the discount rates, factors into the yield that is demand at issue, and it most likely means that the government will have to issue the planned Eurobond at a higher yield, which is expensive.
All right. So, what is the role of the Central Bank of Nigeria in influencing macroeconomic sentiment?
Interesting question. The CBN is about one of the biggest shapers of macroeconomic sentiment, and that is because they stand at the forefront of monetary policy. Foreign investors are in Nigeria, are highly concerned about economic growth. They're highly concerned about interest rates, and they're concerned about the exchange rates. For the last two variables, interest rate and exchange rates, that is where the CBN comes in. So the foreign portfolio investors would always want to see what exactly is the language of the CBN as far as these two variables are concerned. If they express some sort of fear, or if they notice that the CBN is not really going in tandem with what they want to see, they're not going in tandem with their expectation, it most likely means that they will display very weak macroeconomic sentiment. So yes, the CBN is at the front of shaping macroeconomic sentiments through whatever signals they put out at the monetary policy committee meeting, how they carve out their FX policies, what exactly their interest rate stance is in terms of primary market issuances and all of that. And this is where the idea of policy credibility comes into play. As long as the CBN is credible with its policy, it is going to void sentiment in the macroeconomy.
Do you have an outlook in the near term on this?
Well, to be very honest, I would say that I see sentiment improving more in 2022. I think 2022 is the year. And the reason why I'm advancing that is because for the remaining 4 months of the year, the economy is largely going to ride on, the recovery we've seen in the first and the second quarter, of the year. The economy expanded by 5.01% in real terms in the second quarter of the year, compared to 0.51 that we had in the first quarter. So it simply tells a story that the economy is improving, right? And therefore, foreign investors still have that skepticism that the economy is not back to where it was pre-COVID, and therefore they are sort of trying to be very, very careful bringing in investment into the country, and not just even foreign investors, even domestic investors, likewise. And so I feel like 2022 is a year. 2022 is a better outlook to say interest rates will improve, yields will get better, and that would be the year investors will most likely feel that the Nigerian economy is getting back, on track.
All right, Michael, any major, recommendations for the government on how to improve our macroeconomic sentiment?
Okay, so I think I would just give three major recommendations. The first will be in terms of monetary policy. I think about now it's very imperative for the CBN to send a clear signal, to the market. So when I speak about policy credibility, when I spoke about policy credibility earlier, it boils down to two things. Number one, the CBN communicates to the market why exactly are they doing what they are doing. It's very important to put investors and market players in consideration when they are making these policies. Let them know why exactly they are making this step. The other part of the credibility would be being true to their word. So if you say you're going to do A, just stay with A. Don't pass a separate message, or don't do something that opposes what it is you initially had in mind to do. So I feel like that is the first, and for me, I think that is the biggest recommendation as far as improving macroeconomic sentiment is concerned. The CBN has to be clear. They must have clear policies, and they must communicate this in a proper manner to the market. The second thing I'm going to recommend would be in terms of fiscal intervention. Like I said before, economic growth is also a very important factor that shapes macroeconomic sentiment. If the economy is growing and is performing very well, investors will have upbeat expectation about the economy. And this is where fiscal intervention comes in. The government must continue to intervene in the economy, through rolling out of funds to foster investments, rolling out of funds to build infrastructure and all of that. These will help consolidate more growth and will help improve macroeconomic sentiment. The last recommendation for me would be more of a long-term thing, and that would be for the government to look towards realizing more growth through more sustainable factors like technology, more sustainable factors like savings, more sustainable factors like capital dipping and all of that. So beyond just the first two recommendations, which has to do with policy credibility and fiscal intervention, which I think is a way of improving macroeconomic sentiment in the short term, I believe in the long term, the government can consolidate more growth by looking towards more sustainable factors like technology, like education, like more savings, capital, deepening infrastructure, sort of improve the economy and buoy macroeconomic sentiment.
Okay, talking so much about the central bank, of course, the Monetary Policy Committee is meeting this week. Somehow, they shifted their meeting to come this week instead of next week that was earlier scheduled. So what do you hope to hear from the committee this time?
So I think the idea would be to say what exactly does the CBN consider before they make decision on policy rates. The CBN has clearly stated, the last 2-3 MPCs that they are big on growth. And if you look at, like I said before, the economy grew by 5.01% in the second quarter of the year. So it means that the economy is fully on track, to recovery, right? The CBN would also consider inflation. Inflation has been coming down, printed at 17.38 in August as at the last print. If you look at the global outlook, which is also another thing that the CBN will concern, most of the global central banks we currently have are still maintaining the monetary policy accommodation stance that they've had since the outbreak of COVID. So by and large, I feel that the CBN will most likely keep most of the policy rates fixed to ensure that the economy realize more growth. Because if they sort of switch to an hawkish stance, I feel like that might sort of wear out some of the growth that is currently being realized. So I feel like they would most likely keep the rates fixed at levels where they currently are to sort of consolidate more growth.
Right. You cover the fixed income market as well. What are the expectations from that investors in that market as regards this week's Monetary Policy Committee? How are we likely to see the yield curve go this week?
Well, so most investors in the fixed income space they always want a higher yield, right? And so there will be much more in fear of a slash in rates, which, like I said, I don't see that happening. The best outlook for us at Chapel Hill Denham is they are most likely going to keep rates fixed. And I think that what this is just going to mean is investors will most likely maintain status quo in the markets. It also means that yes, we might see some sort of additional interest from fixed income investors, and that might sort of make the market more bullish, post the MPC decision.
All right, Michael, we'll be looking forward to that. We'll have to leave it there now. Michael Oguram is a macroeconomist at Chapel Hill Denham. Thank you for your time on Business Morning.
Thank you very much.
All right, now for opening calls to markets with Aniete. Aniete, we start off the week with the foreign exchange market. How did the Naira perform last week?
Yes, good morning, Ladi, and happy new week. Well, for the Naira, it's not, sorry to spoil your appetite. The Naira was not too good, especially last week. It's been taking a beating, against the dollar, especially at this moment. But week on week, it was a slightly lower margin. But let's take a look at the total volume of transactions carried out at the Forex market last week. It was down by 17.7% in contrast to the first week of September. So we had a total of $876.91 million traded there at the forex markets. Of course, the highest there was at the FX spots segment, which had more than $520 million in transactions there. The lowest there was on the futures market, and that, of course, that had an increase there. But week on week, the total volume of transactions there was down by 17.7%. Then, of course, when we look at the investors and exporters windows of the FX market, total market value was down by 17.25% at 520.77 million. That's in contrast to the previous week. So, of course, not too good picture, but we're hoping that this week, of course, something will be driving it. Of course, when we also take a look at the Naira's performance at the Nigeria Autonomous Exchange, it was slightly up by 0.01% at 411 naira 29 kobo against the dollar. And then, of course, at the BDC, it fell by 1.10% at 526 naira 20 kobo. I'm sure that value has really, maybe it must have gone down. But now to give us more information about that, let's talk to Constance Onya, who is a fixed income dealer at Access Bank. Thank you for joining us, Constance.
Hi, thank you. Good morning.
Yes, good morning and happy new week. So it's not not too pretty picture for the Naira, especially. I don't know, you're a fixed income trader as well as a forex market trader. So can you give us an outlook, and then of course give us a review of last week performance at the fixed income market as well as what to expect at all the markets?
Okay, thank you for having me. So the supply of the iron remained relatively low compared to the demand, as the number of local corporate FPIs continue to source for funds the outstanding obligations. So the rate opened the week at 411.13 last week Monday and closed the week at 412. That's like an 87 kobo depreciation week on week. The turnover for last week was $705 million, a decline from about $300 million from the previous week, where we saw the turnover at $1.05 billion. The CBN also tried to remain committed in the IME intervention for foreign portfolio investors, intervening twice last week, Monday and Wednesday. This is in a bid to just clear out outstanding repatriations and to boost investors' confidence that they are still working on clearing backlog as well. For the NAFEX market, the autonomous rate opened the week at 411.31, and on Monday closed the week at 411.08 with an appreciation of 23 kobo. So going to the parallel market, we saw a spike in the parallel market rate as the week approached. This was in a big way CBN tried to clamp down individuals and institutions involved in diversion of funds from the official market to the black market. Rates moved from 530 on Monday to close at 545 on Friday, and that's about the FX market. Going into the fixed income market, last week was a big bearish in the fixed income market. We noticed the stop rate on the NTD auction, where we had like a total of 250 billion that was sold, and then stop rate moved from 6.8 to 7.2%, and this caused a bit of a bearish moment in the secondary market. For this week, we expect market to have another auction because a new calendar was just released last week, and we usually have like a back-to-back auction when a new calendar is released. So this week we have a total of 155 billion on offer across the 91 days, 182 days, and 364 days. We also expect that this auction, we expect rates to go up, maybe to get to 7.5, between 7.5 and 7.7. So we expect this very strength to linger on. In the bonds market, we saw rates move up, and then coming from the 2050s and 2036s, which were most actively trading during for most parts of the week, rates moved from 12.5 on the 2036s to about 12.6, 12.7 in the secondary market, while the 2050s, we traded at 12.8 and 12.7, moved all the way to 13.1, closing the week last week. We expect these bearish moments to continue as market is expected to remain slightly quiet, depending when the NTD auction results will be out. That's a bit of cap of what has happened in the market last week and what we expect to happen this week.
So thank you so much for that elaborate outlook and preview of the market last week. And we will keep our eyes fixed on that outcome. So, Ladi, that's it for the markets.
All right,
at least for now. I could have given you more information, but like I'd always will tell you, time is never your friend when you want to give information.
Right.
But we'll do that better tomorrow.
All right, we'll see how the markets play out this week. Aniete, thank you so much for that update. All right, after the break, we head to London. Do stay with us. This is Business Morning.
All right, let's see how the markets are opening up there in London. Let's bring in Juliana now. Good morning, Juliana. A beautiful week to you. Well, markets are starting the new week worrying about growth prospects and inflation. Inflation data in the UK is expected this week. How are the markets opening up the new week?
Good morning, Chimese. Well, it's a bright start to potentially a bright week here in the UK after last week's mass sell-off. The FTSE All-Share has actually opened up much better than anticipated, particularly because of what's happening in China. There are so many concerns amongst investors about new regulatory crackdown, so I'm sure that might sweep into the market sometime this week. But you're right, we've got two big days, tomorrow and Wednesday. Tomorrow, first of all, starts off with unemployment data. Now, unemployment and the labour market is a topic of much discussion here in the UK. So many businesses, including the CBI, a big business lobby group, are warning the government that these shortages, these labour shortages, could last for about 2 years if the government doesn't pull its socks up and starts loosening some of these Brexit migrant rules, which is really causing lots of shortages. We've spoken about restaurants. It's leaking out now into supermarkets. Could affect Christmas. Yes, I am mentioning Christmas once again in the month of September. So that's that. I believe unemployment currently stands at about 4.7%. That could drop to about 4.6%. This is for the month of July. Then we have on Wednesday, inflation data, very, very important. Surprise, surprise, inflation for the month of July actually fell back to the Bank of England's benchmark rate of 2% from 2.5% in the month of June. So we're looking all important at the month of August. There are some suggestions it could climb as high as 2.9%. Very, very important because we know inflation is a topic of much discussion around the world.
Yeah, we'll keep tracking those data this week. In the meantime, French vaccine maker Valneva says the UK government has cracked a deal for its COVID-19 vaccine. The UK had about 100 million doses on order. Any idea why the deal was scrapped?
Yeah, this is a really interesting story. At the moment, we're yet to hear officially from the Ministry of Health, although I know that Scotland authorities have been speaking because Valneva, which is a French pharmaceutical company, the contract that they had with the government, which was initially for 40 million doses, was in February this year increased to 100 million. But according to them, the termination has been ripped apart. Well, the contract has been terminated because of a breach of the contract. Now, bosses are strenuously denying that. I've got just a brief part of their statement. They said the contract provides HMG, Her Majesty's government, with the rights to terminate. The government has alleged that the company is in breach of its obligations under the supply agreement, but as I said, the company strenuously denies it. Valneva is still conducting trials, so it's not yet been officially approved to be used anywhere. We know that the West have been hoarding vaccines, so there is enough. Britain does have enough vaccines to vaccinate the entire British population, as well as provide a booster jab, which I believe they're going to start running. They're going to start putting out in the next couple of months. But as of yet, no information from the government. But I know Valneva's share price dropped swiftly in France following that announcement.
All right, thanks, Juliana. We'll get more update from you later in the day on Business Incorporated. Okay, let's look at the crypto market with Ladi now. Hey, Ladi, what do we have there? A red Monday?
Oh, yes. We have a red Monday and a huge tussle between the bears and the bulls on the 200-day simple moving average, which has gotten the market red with a couple of double-digit losses with a couple of altcoins. Ethereum's at 3,208. Bitcoin, $44,495 this morning. Look at the fear greed index. Now we're at fear. You know, just a couple of weeks ago was extreme greed, and now we're at fear. Who knows? We might get to extreme fear with this. Looking at the fear greed index is showing the sentiment in the market right now. Market cap $2.05 trillion. It's looking like it's going to go below the $2 trillion mark if this if the bears actually win this battle. It's down by 1.12%, 24-hour volume, $115.71 billion, up about 6.54%. Bitcoin dominance, 41.14%. It's still ranging between the 41 and 45% range for the Bitcoin dominance. Price of Bitcoin, 44,778 at 8 a.m. this morning, down about 0.88%, but it's much lower at this hour. 24-hour volume traded in Bitcoin, $30.27 billion, and price of Ethereum, 3,200, down 0.86%. 24-hour volume traded in Ethereum, $17.31 billion. From the massive sell-offs we see in the market today. Top also market cap, it is red across board. BNB, $400, down 0.90%. Cardano, and the biggest loser there, we have Solana. Solana has had an amazing run this past couple of months, but it's down 9.04%. Could be profit taking from a couple of traders there. All right, let's bring in Paul Oladiji now, digital market analyst. Great to have you, Paul. Good morning. Good morning, Paul. So I see the market is having a major pullback, Bitcoin and a couple of altcoins actually giving away gains. What's happening? Hello, Paul. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's as a result of we've been having said though. So when it comes the reason for that actually has been because we've had a lot of expansion in the market. We've had a lot of rally in the market, and so the dips are as a result of the expansion. So, like I said, the dips occur when we have a lot of accumulation. So currently we're in the distribution in the market.
Paul. Hello, Paul. Can you hear me?
Now there should be it's a retracement.
Paul, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, please. I'd like you to turn down the volume of your TV set so we can hear you very well.
Okay. Yeah, I can.
Okay, so you can continue your thought.
All right.
All right. You can continue with your thought.
Okay. Yeah, the reason for that, like I said, was as a result of our expansion. We've had expansions in the market, and so the market is due for a retracement. So currently, we are still on a bull run, but the retracement is actually normal. We don't see it as a pullback in the market currently. So it's only a matter of time before we have reversals again.
All right. So, with these sell-offs, what altcoins are you watching at this time?
Altcoins I'm watching at this time is actually they are Solana. Solana is one. Solana is one of those altcoins. Axie Infinity is one. AXS is one. I'm also looking into Luna. I'm looking into Xcard too. I have bags of Xcard. I also have bags of AVAX too, because those bags are actually I anticipate high rallies for those altcoins too. Then I have BNB. I have BNB.
Okay.
Then I also look into I look into GT too. That is Gate token, and I'm also looking into FTM. So FTM is also one of my biggest bags too.
Yeah, Phantom has had an incredible run this period. But let's look at Bitcoin now. What's your outlook for this week for the price of Bitcoin?
Price of Bitcoin. I've been making a lot of analysis on Bitcoin recently. But what I see is that there's been dumps there's been dumps to like I said, there will always be a retracement in order for us to have another impulsive move up. So currently, my looks for Bitcoin this week is actually bearish. My bias for Bitcoin this week is bearish. That is, you should see more of dumps on Bitcoin this week.
Okay. All right, Paul Oladiji, digital market analyst. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you too.
All right. So top of the market cap, see XRP there, 7 cents, down 0.14%. Top gainers right now, we have a couple of gainers, even though they have a massive sell-offs right now. Tezos is up 18.20%. Polkadot, $35, up 13.84%. And Algo, an Atom, have been performing well over the weekend, up 11 and 9% respectively. And Tron there, with Justin Sun saying that there's some news coming out for Tron. So we see the price reacting to that at 10 cents there. Top 5 losers, we have Silo down 13.72%. Avax is also on the losers counter, down 13%. And Solana and Phantom, 2 major rises in the past week, down 8.95 and 8.93% respectively. So, Chimmy, it's a tussle right now between the bear and the bulls.
It's basically more of a profit taking coming from a bullish trend the previous week. And we'll see how the week goes. But for you, what altcoin are you watching? Well,
I'm watching ZRX, I'm watching Phantom, I'm watching Shiba Inu. Those ones are actually on my...
Solana.
Yeah, Solana. That one has had an incredible run. Everybody's talking about it, even celebrities. And even, interestingly, Mike Tyson talked about Solana recently. So, but the fear now is buying the top. You don't want to buy the top. So you need to find
central
the right
banks, e-Naira will soon come on board.
Oh,
and I'm sure
one
of the coins will be tracking.
Oh, yes. We'll be tracking the e-Naira.
Okay, that's a wrap on the program. And don't forget to join us by 1:30 p.m. on Business Incorporated for more updates on developments in the business world. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwagu.
And I'm Ladi Williams. Thank you for watching.